Hello! I wanted to share a quick sound design trick I've been doing a lot lately. It's a way to get really granular, especially if your sounds are already baked down and printed. There are tons of applications for it, which I'll go over later, but all it is just chopping things up and using take effects on the individual pieces. So for example, I'm working on a project now where I have to record a lot of Foley. I have these knife sounds with ring outs, and I need them to be squeaky clean, but you can hear there's a lot of noise floor in the tail. The front of the sound where I'm scraping the knife, that's fine. It's loud against the noise floor, but I really want that ring out. And it might seem bananas to get so granular, but I'm going to be stacking 7, 8 layers of this on top of each other, and it really builds up. So I'll chop the tail and then affect just that bit. You can hear there's some wumpy low end in there. Wumpy, look it up. So I could high pass the whole tail, or I grab over here where there's some fizzy noise and dip that. And boom, nice clean ring out without affecting the body. And there's a million ways to do this part. For the knife ring out in particular, you could even grab M ratio MB, pull down the noise a bit, and there's your clean ring out. And I didn't have to do any noise reduction on the meat of the sound. This also works really well for cleaning up Foley. So say there's just a tiny section here where the microphone got rumbled or some air blew past it. You could trim out just this little micro piece and EQ that bump out. So you don't have to cut away at the whole thing in a macroscopic way. It's the same with noise reduction or transient shaping. There might be just little tiny moments here and there where there's room echo or something. Take a transient shaper and pull the sustain down and it sounds nice and dry without having to apply it to everything. Here's another great one. You can reshape the dynamics of a sound you already baked down. So say you love the sound, but you compressed it a lot and it's not hitting as hard as you wanted to. I can snip the front here and put a transient shaper on there, which wouldn't normally work because there's no real transient left for it to work with, and boost into that. Now it sounds way punchier. On that same note, you could also swap out a completely different transient and just stitch it right on the front. Another application is, say I have this glass sound, and I like it, but it doesn't quite match up with an animation. It's too short. So I could pile on layers and build it out, but I could also just make a sustain bit, chop up my original sound and slot it in there, and now I have a much longer piece. All right, one more. Let's say I have a sound that's pretty good, but it's super boomy, right? Like the tail just has this crazy sustained bass that'll eat up all my headroom. And if I use EQ in a broadband way, it might sound kind of wimpy. Or I could maybe mess with multiband dynamics to clean it up, but I also find that kind of fiddly and unintuitive for this. So instead, I'll leave the front of the sound alone so we have that chunky transient up front. But then for the tail, we can scoop all that rumble out. And boom, super clean. Still sounds plenty thick, but without the muddy rumble on the end. The reason I love this workflow so much is because of the crossfades. It sort of does the blending work for you. So you can make these pretty radical changes and they'll always sound smooth going from one piece to the next. Whereas with something like automation, you'd have to fiddle a lot with the curves and the mix knob to make sure it's not too jarring. I also love it because of the kind of horizontal rather than vertical layering. Like if I'm appending a tail onto this, you'll know that aspect of the sound is clean and clear because it's the only thing there. Frankensteined on to the end, nothing else lingering and getting in its way. It's the same with adding a whoosh or a lead-in to the front. There's no layering that could trample on your all-important transients. No side chaining necessary. Anyway, that's all. Goodbye!